All right, let's keep things moving along here. We've got the Dallas Cowboys of eSports GameSquare panel spotlight. Joining me is Justin Kenna here in the middle, the CEO of GameSquare, Lou Schwartz, the president of GameSquare, and Rob Sender, the senior director of brand marketing of the Dallas Cowboys, the most valuable franchise in the world. Guys, it's great to see you all again. Can you briefly describe GameSquare and the growth you've accomplished? And Rob, it would also be great if you could weigh in on your role with the company.
Yeah, I can kick off. I'm Justin. Thanks for having us. I'm the CEO of GameSquare. Was formerly, for those who know the gaming space, was the CFO at FaZe Clan. Sort of full circle moment for me. We actually acquired FaZe Clan earlier this year. But yeah, for those that are newer to the space, GameSquare, we're publicly traded on NASDAQ under the stock ticker GAME, GAME. We're an end-to-end media platform that connects game publishers and tier one brands with the huge and growing gaming and esports communities. Again, for those that aren't as familiar, I mean, this total addressable market is enormous. This fan base is huge. You know, 1/3 of the world's population plays games online in some description. You know, we are helping publishers and brands navigate this space and connect with audience. We do so sort of through three main segments. From an end-to-end standpoint, we really don't have a competitor. We do have competitors in those three streams. We have our technology and SaaS business, which Lou will do a little bit more of a deep dive into. Lou oversees our technology business, but really this is data and analytics. It's our influencer management platform. It gives us a huge competitive advantage into our second stream, which is our full service agency business. Again, pretty unique in the space. It definitely competing against traditional agencies, but we also have a content studio, a merchant consumer products business, and a media network that directly focuses on connectivity with youth audience. Our media network, again, is unique. It's 75 endemic sites that reach 115 million gaming and esports fans every month. So this audience is massive, but it's really fragmented. So that's really working for us, which is we have the data in-house to help navigate the space, to inform strategy, and then we can guarantee eyeballs and click through. And then finally, we have our owned and operated IP. I mentioned FaZe Clan. We build out events and content with some of the biggest influencers and talent in the world.
Great. Lou?
I'm Lou Schwartz. As Justin pointed out, I'm the president and the chairman of the board of GameSquare. I joined GameSquare back in April of 2023 when we merged the company that I was running called Engine Gaming and Media. We consummated the merger it's been about a year and a half ago. We experienced at the tail end of the pandemic, some of sort of the headwinds in the small cap sort of market, and recognized that being a subscale sort of public company with innate public company costs. When you're public, and we just covered this on the previous panel, there are costs. There's D&O costs. There are professional service, fees, audit fees, and if you're not operating at the scale needed in order to cover those costs, it makes much more sense, right, to combine with another public company where you can further rationalize those costs. It made a lot of sense for Engine Gaming to combine with GameSquare. Engine was highly focused on our software platforms, which were particularly self-serve by the clients that we were targeting. Customers were looking for a more fulsome set of capabilities, including agency, including sort of owned and operated media. We ran a process. We felt that GameSquare was highly complementary to our business. We combined our businesses, and then we sort of divested certain sort of non-core sort of assets in order to deliver value back to our shareholders and really invest in what we felt was the future growth of the business. And then we recently sort of consummated another merger several months ago with FaZe Clan, again, adding to sort of that thesis of creating sort of greater scale, further rationalizing corporate cost, and really operating sort of at the levels of profitability and margin, that the public market expects.
Rob?
Good afternoon. My name is Rob Sender. I lead the brand and marketing team for the Dallas Cowboys and the Jones family of companies. My connection to these guys is probably simple to say, hard to pull off at its highest altitude. My role is all about growing the next generation of fans. And my background is in corporate brand management, agency strategy, and we'll just pull the elephant in the room, put it on the table. It's like we know that winning helps all, but when we're not winning, we've got to have some other strategies in our back pocket. So when it comes to growing that next generation of fans, I'm extremely bullish on gaming and all the trends. I mean, we could spend hours and hours talking about this, but all the trends and different ways that content consumption has changed, and we are no longer in an industry of just sports. Like, we call it entertainment. Like, we are a entertainment brand first and foremost. The sports just happens to be the way we go about that, generally speaking. But what we're able to do with audience reach and bring in that next generation through gaming in so many different ways, shapes and forms, is really a huge opportunity for us. So I've had the pleasure of almost 3 years now with the Dallas Cowboys getting to work with GameSquare and a variety of the companies that Justin mentioned. And we're off and running, and there's so much opportunity ahead, and we might dive into that, but that's ultimately its connection and how we're going to do that.
And Justin, obviously having key investors like the Jones family, the Goff family, and now Matt Kalish is powerful. How do people like this contribute to your success?
Yeah, for sure. So going back a step, we are the agency of record for the Dallas Cowboys. So one of our sort of, I guess, big areas, again, of differentiation is really this crossover into traditional entertainment, and obviously, sport, music, fashion, and really helping navigate that future fandom and how they reach organically these huge audiences. As you mentioned, so Jerry Jones is our largest shareholder. We did a deal with the Jones and Goff families 3 years ago. Actually owned an eSports team, Complexity, at the time. We sold Complexity earlier this year and replaced them with FaZe Clan, which, again, to probably use a sporting analogy, was similar to owning a minor league baseball team and buying the New York Yankees. Jerry was very supportive of this. I think what they realized, and I think what is really cool about the Jones family really is, I mean, this is a football product that is so rinse and repeat, right? You mentioned before the most valuable sporting organization in the world from a family-run business in a domestic sport in Texas. It's pretty crazy. But what they're continuing to do is to push the envelope around, really where the puck is going, not where it is. And I think that they saw that opportunity in esports. I think that, like many through COVID, there were a lot of sort of traditional sports owners who bought different teams and put the Cowboys logo on the team and thought that would resonate. And the reality is it doesn't. I got a call from Travis Goff, who's the president of Goff Capital. They're very close with the Jones family. 3 years ago, as we were really building out this media company, and he had a lot of interest. He heard me on a podcast talking about FaZe Clan and the growth of the space and the way I saw it and what we were building, and was really interested in joining the family. And I wasn't as interested at first and kind of said no, and I don't think the Joneses are used to hearing no, and they flew me out to Texas, and I got grilled by Jerry Sr. and Steven for about an hour. And I thought they were pitching me, but I left and we did a deal. So it was actually the best deal that we could have done, because I think my queries around it really were, are they passing off this asset to me and they don't care? It's been the exact opposite. And I think the fact that Rob here is testament to that. Some of the programs that we're running and that we're building out with the Cowboys are world class, and we think we can productize these and roll them out to other sporting organizations across the world. It's given us huge ins with the NFL. I think we're going to touch on some of that, but we're running a creator program with the NFL that's going to launch at the Super Bowl this year. And Jerry and John have led every financing that we've done. So they put their money where their mouth is. They didn't just walk away. They've given us access. They care. They care about their future season ticket holder. They care about market share. They care about evolving and growing fandom in markets that they're not currently hitting. And gaming is an incredible way to be able to do that. They see that, and they've been incredible supporters.
Great. And Rob, How does the Cowboys organization view esports? Is there much overlap with traditional sports and entertainment?
Sure, there's some overlap, but I mean, the way that I think about it, and we were actually talking about this at the table earlier today, is, you know, every great brand rises and falls. And we can sit here today and you could just list a bunch of brands that dominated their industry, dominated just overall markets that almost don't exist anymore today. And when people say things, like, it is my job to be concerned about this. When people say and bring up the Cowboys are number one, most valuable, this, that, or the other, it's amazing. But it's also a long way to fall potentially. So it's our job to be constantly thinking about what can we do to maintain and even grow. What can we do that's going to continually fill a bucket that the truth is it's a leaky bucket. It's been a long time since we won that last Super Bowl, and we have to be honest about that. And we have to recognize that, as our fan base ages, just as many other sports teams, not even just NFL, that they're dealing with a similar thing. When the product is on a home television screen in the living room, and maybe dad's sitting there watching it, but kids are over playing on their tablets, or maybe they're in the next room on a PC gaming, like, that is such a massive sandbox for us to go play in. And that is ultimately where there's buy-in, obviously, all the way to the top with Jerry Sr. himself with the partnership and the ownership piece of this. But there is buy-in to go and start to explore. And the way I think about it is, we're not broken, from a brand standpoint, like, we're in that leadership role, but we've got to be testing and learning. And that's what our team is constantly doing and working with GameSquare, is to figure out what are those little pieces we can peel off and say, yeah, let's go try that. Maybe it's eSports specific. Maybe it's creating something that's owned. Like, we have our own platform now that we're trying to build equity in that has the Cowboy star on it. And when things work, we're going to pour gasoline on it. And when things don't work, we're going to treat it almost like that tech experience and say, okay, great. Like, that's fine. We learned something. Let's move on. Let's cut our losses and let's continue to iterate.
Great. What do the Cowboys, the NFL, and GameSquare have in store for the rest of the football season?
You want to kick off? You want me to?
Go for it. I was just talking.
Yeah, cool. So we have a program with the Cowboys called Cowboys Game Time, which we'll be running. I think last year was year one. It was hugely successful. We're continuing to build that out. It's a platform that Rob was talking to. I think what it's done for GameSquare has been huge. We're having discussions, as I was sort of mentioning before, with European football teams, with basketball teams, with sporting teams all over the world, which is similar in terms of having flexibility around the game that you're playing. I think everybody thinks, NFL, you put a Madden tournament out there and people are going to care. They don't. These kids are consuming, first-person shooter games. They're playing Fortnite. I think that the Cowboys have been really flexible with how do we organically reach this audience and meet this audience where it is. I think being able to leverage, the players, the Cowboys, who are all gamers. I mean, all of these athletes game now, and partnering them with some of the biggest influencers in the world is incredible and gets such viewership. And all of a sudden, there's kids that are in Mexico or Brazil who may not care about watching football on a Sunday, who start to watch Ezekiel Elliott or Dak Prescott or care about the Cowboys. And that's been really cool. We actually did we had a live stream of Tim the Tapman. Again, I'm sure many in the room don't know who Tim the Tapman is. Some may. We work closely with Tim. I mean, Tim has around 40 million followers across his platforms. He really is a media asset in his own right. He's one of the biggest streamers in the world. And Tim and Ezekiel Elliott did a live stream from AT&T Stadium and played on the biggest TV in North America. We had pyrotechnics, and it was awesome. So lots of really exciting, cool crossover, lots of content. And it's really led us into this creator series that we're running for the NFL. We're kicking it off. This is year one, launching it at the Super Bowl, which will be very similar to a sort of college game day, Pat McAfee style, but run through the lens of gaming. We're doing with Ninja, who, again, similar to a Tim, one of the biggest streamers in the world. Ninja's actually our chief innovation officer. Ninja has around 70 million followers through his Twitch platform, and this will actually be live streamed through his platform. So from an NFL perspective, you're reaching an audience that may not be tuning in to Super Bowl Sunday. and integrating in gaming and some tailgate sort of fun and different things. So really excited about that one. But yeah, we've got a lot in store. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I would love to. Really two pieces. So I'm going to steal a line from you, Justin, that I heard from you. He told me early on when we started this partnership, tell me if I get this right, it was in the old days, athletes wanted to be rock stars and rock stars wanted to be athletes. Now we're seeing that athletes want to be gamers and gamers want to be athletes. And what is so incredible for the Cowboys brand is our players are gamers themselves. During the offseason, Micah Parsons, one of the biggest superstars in the NFL right now, he is constantly tweeting about his Madden rating. He's just pissed off all the time at EA Sports for giving him a bad Madden rating. Our players, when you go down to the locker room, after practice, before practice, off days, they're in there gaming against each other. So it's not a stretch. There's so many brands that want to be active and have a presence in gaming because they know that it's probably the right thing to do and it's good for the brand, but man, to build that bridge is a tough one. We don't have to do that. Like our influencers, our guys that are playing on Sunday afternoon are gamers already. It's like, let's put them to work. Like we're not trying to reinvent a wheel here. So that's part of what we're working on. Sports teams, NBA was probably a bit ahead of the NFL in just getting into overall gaming and carving off their own esports teams and whatnot. So there's a lot of learnings I think we can take, and I think that's the best thing for us to do is say like, what have we seen that other brands, other sports brands have done that, let's be honest, like maybe we're a little jealous of, wish we would have got to that first. But let's not be afraid to adopt some of that and double down on it. So whether we're creating our own platforms, as Justin just alluded to, whether we're using our players to do that, we know that it's a way to extend and merge these audiences. If you're following the Dallas Cowboys on social media, whether it be our Instagram, TikTok, what have you, like you're pretty much a hand raiser. Like you're a fan. Like we've got that group. It's a pretty protected. It's a sizable group, but it's a pretty protected group of hand raisers. What we want to start to do is pull those fringe audiences in, and that's how when we can get Micah going head to head in Madden, against whomever it might be, and we're going to stream that on our YouTube channel, and you're going to get people tuning in that aren't typically tuning in to the Dallas Cowboys YouTube channel. Like that's how we start to fill that bucket. And we know not every one of them is going to stick around, but some of them will. And the more that we can start doing that, and the more that we can get that to scale and do it more frequently, the better for the overall brand and the overall audience growth.
Great. This question is for all three of you. What does it mean to become the Dallas Cowboys of esports? What strategies are you thinking about when you want to break through not just the gaming world, but into pop culture?
Yeah, I can kick off. I think that, what, again, the Jones family have been able to do with the Star from just a pure licensing standpoint is something that certainly can be emulated in the esports space. GameSquare as a whole, we will do around 110 million in revenue this year. Around 10 to 15 million of that is esports. So we're much broader than esports within sort of gaming and youth culture more broadly. But from an esports perspective, I think, we're actually looking now at moving our esports team. It's currently sort of based in LA, even though they're all over the world, to the Star in Texas, in Frisco, next to the Cowboys. There's just a lot that you can learn from the standard that the Jones family have done everything. And we are taking those learnings with a brand like FaZe Clan more broadly, which, if you look at FaZe and talking about sort of social platforms and channels, FaZe has one of the largest audiences in the world, bar none, by any traditional sporting team. And again, those that don't know FaZe in the room, if you go home, you have kids and you ask them who FaZe Clan is, I guarantee you they will know who they are. We had a shoe launch with LeBron James and Nike last week. We've had huge crossover from a licensing co-branded product standpoint. I think there's a lot of learnings that we can take from the Jones family and what they've been able to do to grow revenue outside of esports. Esports, again, like for those that aren't as familiar in the room, very similar financial model to traditional sports. I think the major differentiator is, the publishers of the games are separate, they're fragmented, and we're not getting media rights revenue, but we do get in-game digital item revenue. That's probably the biggest sort of differentiator there between that.
Lou?
Listen, being compared to the Dallas Cowboys is like being compared to the most best-in-class organization sort of in the world. So, in addition to why we are so important, right, to the Dallas Cowboys and their ability to relate to younger audiences, sort of having sort of the cachet that we as an organization are the Cowboys of esports, right, is just sort of a marquee sort of designation, and so we're so super proud of that.
Rob?
Yeah, the thing that gets me the most excited is that at the end of the day, we've got 17 games a year, if you remove preseason. So compared to all the other big sports leagues, we have so much time to fill and so much time to have to go build other ways to engage our fan base throughout the year that is not a Sunday afternoon or a Monday or Thursday now, but outside of game day itself. So I think if we're gonna put a stake down and say like we are all in on gaming, which clearly we are, the opportunity is so massive to do it well. And that's why I am, the thing that keeps me up at night is how we're gonna fill all that time. It's no longer, is this the right space? Is this the right place to play? It's like, we know that. Now we've got to go figure out all the different ways to do it and do it really well, because we have a huge audience that's asking for it. So that's I guess the pressure that comes with blending gaming with the Dallas Cowboys is, our bosses, I guess I can say that, all our collective bosses up here, expect that. If we're going to go after it, if we're going to go all in, which we are, we better be top notch and make sure that the programs are at an expected level.
And Lou, how important is technology to GameSquare? And can you tell us a little bit about the platform that you've created?
Sure, yeah. Listen, software and technology are absolutely sort of critical to our overall business model. As you would expect, software, highly predictable between sort of the revenue and the margin. But more importantly, this is a big audience, right, that we're trying to reach. It's a very fractured, very fragmented space. Try reaching Gen Z and millennials today. They don't consume sort of media in the same way that sort of older generations consume media. There's no such thing as prime time at 8 o'clock on a Thursday night. So finding these 18 to 35-year-olds is difficult. Our data basically informs where they are and where they're spending their time. They just so happen to be spending an inordinate amount of time on their mobile phones, gaming consoles, and PCs. We integrate into all the major sort of streaming platforms, Twitch, which is owned by Amazon, YouTube, which is owned by Google, 20 platforms around the world. We know where the audiences are, and we know which influencers and creators these audiences are connecting with. And that information is super informative to the game publishers and the other tier 1 brands that want to engage those audiences. So data becomes really sort of an underpinning of our entire organization, and it feeds the other 2 legs. We liken it to the 3-legged stool. We've got software as a service, or our software and managed service business. We've got our agency and creative services, and the last leg is our owned and operated media properties. Our technology really feeds and informs the other sort of 2 legs of the stool. Brands don't want to just spend today, right, without having some quantifiable ROI, right? What is the attribution? What is the conversion ratio? Being able to keep those dollars in-house and be able to extract additional sort of margin from our existing customers is super critical, right, to our overall strategy.
I think just to add to that, something that Lou often says that I think resonates is, what Nielsen was to broadcast television really is what we are to the streaming space, and to Lou's point, gives us a huge competitive advantage with how fragmented this space is, and being able to navigate and really inform and help game publishers and brands target specific audiences, know what influencers they need to use, through our agency business, build out these strategies to be able to execute, and then through our media network, guarantee those eyeballs and engagement that's really resonating and working, that end-to-end platform.
Makes sense. Last question here. 2024 has been a transformative year for GameSquare. What's on tap for 2025?
Yeah, it's been a massive year. Obviously, we had a big acquisition that we touched on with FaZe Clan, who actually had a very sort of public SPAC deal that went pretty south. This was a brand, and the brand is really powerful, but from a business standpoint, had a lot of hair on it. It was trading north of $1 billion at one point, less than 24 months ago. We acquired it for $14 million of stock, 1.4. So it's been a heavy lift in cleaning up a lot of contracts and pulling out a lot of costs. We actually have our earnings call in 2 hours, I think, Lou. So we've got to head off from here and do that. But we just upgraded guidance. We're knocking on the door of profitability. We're trending really well to sort of break even here by end of year and generating cash in 2025. We're extremely excited. We've done a lot of cleanup and a lot of integration, and now it's really just focusing on execution and organic growth. That part of the business is really pleasing. Our agency side of the business, we've gone from pretty tough brand and ad markets over the last couple of years and navigating that and competing for RFPs to now being very selective on who we work with. We have a multi-year, multi-million-dollar relationships with ESPN, Paramount, Disney, 5 Hour Energy, Topgolf, HyperX, Converse. We work very, very closely with Epic Games, the creator of Fortnite. And so, we're incredibly well positioned for growth and to be generating real cash in 2025 that, we feel that we've navigated some pretty choppy markets and that there's some real blue skies ahead.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.